I'm Evelyn Carter, the woman who was erased from the life of the man I loved for 15 years, until the day my son stood in the middle of his wedding to my best friend and said, "My name is Liam Carter. I'm 14 years old, and I just wanted to meet my father before he married someone else." Before I share my full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome a pain you thought was impossible. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The night shift at Seattle General always felt endless, but tonight was different. My hands trembled as I held the cream-colored envelope, its edges sharp against my fingertips. The return address made my stomach drop. Hayes Vineyard Estate, Napa Valley. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift in the ICU, my scrubs still carrying the antiseptic smell of the hospital. My feet ached, my back screamed, but none of that compared to the pain blooming in my chest as I read the elegant script inside. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Hayes request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son, Nathaniel James Hayes, to Isabella Grace Moore. Nathaniel. After 14 years, his name still had the power to steal my breath. And Isabella, God, Isabella, my college roommate, the one who'd held my hair back during morning sickness, who'd sworn she'd never speak to that bastard again after what he did to me. "Mom?" Liam's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway of our small kitchen, his dark hair falling into eyes that were exact replicas of his father's. "You okay?" I tried to slip the invitation under some bills, but he was too quick. At 14, he'd inherited more than just Nathaniel's looks. He had his sharp perception, too. "Who's getting married?" He picked up the invitation before I could stop him. His eyes scanned the text, then landed on the photo that had fallen from the envelope. It was old, edges worn from years hidden in my jewelry box. Nathaniel and me at Ocean Beach, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. Liam's face went still. He looked from the photo to the invitation, then back to me. "Is he my father?" The words hung between us like a challenge. I'd prepared for this moment for years, had practiced what I'd say, but now my carefully rehearsed explanations crumbled. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened the text. "If you know what's good for you, don't let the boy show up. Napa Valley isn't safe for bastards." The word hit like a physical blow. I felt Liam reading over my shoulder, saw his jaw tighten, another trait from his father. "We're going," he said, his voice steady, despite the hurt in his eyes. I deserve to meet him. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories I'd locked away came flooding back, as vivid as if they'd happened yesterday. San Francisco, 15 years ago. I was 21, working nights at a small bookstore in the Mission District to pay for nursing school. He walked in during a November rainstorm, water dripping from his expensive coat, looking lost among the used paperbacks. "Do you have anything on winemaking?" he'd asked, and I'd laughed because he was standing directly in front of the agriculture section. "Rough day?" I'd said, pointing to the shelf. "Family business," he'd answered with a rueful smile. "Sometimes I wonder if there's more to life than grapes and profit margins." We talked until closing time. He came back the next night, and the next. Soon he was bringing me coffee during my shifts, waiting to walk me to my car. Nathaniel Hayes, heir to a wine empire, falling for a nobody from Tacoma who'd moved to California with nothing but nursing school dreams. For 8 months, we existed in a bubble. He'd sneak away from Napa Valley, showing up at my tiny studio apartment with takeout and that smile that made me forget how different our worlds were. We'd lie on my secondhand couch, planning a future where money and family names didn't matter. I should have known better. Should have seen the signs when he started taking phone calls in the hallway when he'd flinch at his mother's name. Margaret Hayes didn't just run Hayes Vineyards. She controlled everything in her orbit with an iron fist wrapped in a designer glove. The day I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Nathaniel had been in New York for a wine auction. I'd planned to tell him when he got back, had even bought a silly onesie that said Future Vintner as a joke. But Margaret got to me first. She appeared at my apartment like an omen, her white suit pristine despite the San Francisco fog. 2 men flanked her. Not quite bodyguards, but close enough. "Miss Carter?" she'd said, settling onto my couch like she owned it. We need to discuss your situation. The conversation that followed still haunted me. Margaret had laid out my options with surgical precision. Take the money she offered and disappear, or face the consequences. When I'd tried to argue, to insist that Nathaniel loved me, she'd laughed, a cold, tinkling sound like ice in expensive crystal. My son thinks he loves you, she'd corrected. But Nathaniel has responsibilities, a legacy. You're a sweet distraction, but hardly wife material for a haze. I'd refused her money. Told her Nathaniel would choose us, the baby and me. The next morning, I woke up to 30 missed calls and a single text from Nathaniel's number. This needs to end. Don't contact me again. When I went to his apartment, the doorman wouldn't let me up. His phone number was disconnected. Even the bookstore owner received a call saying Nathaniel had moved back east permanently. In less than 24 hours, it was like he'd never existed in my life at all. 3 days later, the accident happened. I was crossing the street to the prenatal clinic when a black sedan ran the red light. I remember the impact, the way time seemed to slow as I instinctively wrapped my arms around my belly. The driver never stopped. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital, terrified I'd lose the baby. The doctors called it a miracle that we both survived. The police said they couldn't trace the car, stolen plates, no cameras at that intersection. But I knew. The timing was too perfect, too clean. My mother flew down from Tacoma, took one look at my bruised face and swollen belly, and made a decision. We're getting you out of here, she'd said. A week later, I was back in Seattle, starting over at Swedish Medical Center, trying to build a life from the ashes of my dreams. Liam was born on a rainy April morning, perfect and screaming and absolutely his father's son. I'd sent one photo to Nathaniel's family lawyer. Proof of life, nothing more. The response was a single page demanding I never contact the Hayes family again, along with a court document where Nathaniel had preemptively relinquished all parental rights. Now, staring at his wedding invitation, I wondered if he even remembered signing it, or if he remembered me at all. Mom? Liam stood in my bedroom doorway, backpack already slung over his shoulder. I looked up the wedding venue online. It's in 3 days. If we leave tomorrow morning, we can make it. The drive to Napa Valley took 15 hours. Liam had inherited my stubbornness along with his father's eyes, and once he'd made up his mind, there was no changing it. We left Seattle in my 10-year-old Honda, the rain following us south until we hit Oregon. Tell me about him, Liam said, somewhere outside of Sacramento. And not the bad stuff. Just who he was. So I did. I told him about the man who'd quote poetry while we walked through Golden Gate Park, who'd taught me to recognize different wine grapes by their leaves, who'd once driven 3 hours just to bring me soup when I had the flu. He sounds normal, Liam said finally, not like some rich villain. He wasn't, I admitted. That's what made it worse. We stopped for gas in Vallejo, and that's when I noticed the man. Tall, mid-40s, with a kind of forgettable face that actually made him memorable. He'd been behind us since Portland, always 2 or 3 cars back. Everything okay? He asked, approaching as I pumped gas. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Long trip with a teenager must be tough. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. We're fine, thanks. Heading to wine country? Beautiful this time of year. He glanced at Liam in the car. Strong resemblance. His father must be proud. I dropped the gas cap. By the time I'd retrieved it, he was walking back to a blue sedan, whistling. The tune was familiar, the same song Nathaniel used to hum. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Evelyn Carter? The voice was male, refined. My name is Ethan Ward. I believe you just met my associate. Rather clumsy of him, but then Marcus always was too direct. I have a different proposition for you. I'm not interested in propositions. Not even ones that involve the truth about what really happened 14 years ago. I gripped the phone tighter. Who are you? Someone who's been watching over you longer than you know. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night at 8. Be there, bring your son. And Evelyn, that text you received wasn't from who you think. The line went dead. When I looked back, the blue sedan was gone. We reached Napa Valley as the sun set, painting the vineyards gold. The Hayes estate sprawled across hundreds of acres, the main house visible from the highway like a castle. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. "It's huge," Liam breathed. "He owns all this?" "His family does." I pulled into a modest hotel 10 miles from the estate. "Liam, maybe we should—" "No." His voice was firm. "We came this far. I need to see him. I need him to see me." That night, I stood on the hotel balcony, staring at the distant lights of the Hayes compound. Somewhere over there, Nathaniel was probably tasting wine with his bride-to-be, surrounded by people who'd never question his version of the past. My phone buzzed. An email, this time, from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my blood run cold. "What really happened, 2011. Inside were dozens of attachments. Photos of me from 14 years ago. At the bookstore, walking to class, even inside my apartment. Surveillance photos. Each one dated and time-stamped. The last one showed me in the hospital after the accident, Nathaniel standing in the hallway outside my room. He'd been there. He'd come. A knock at the door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan Ward. This time, I got a good look at him. Salt and pepper hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, an expensive suit that didn't quite hide the tension in his shoulders. "5 minutes," he said when I cracked the door open. "That's all I need." Against every instinct, I let him in. He glanced at Liam, asleep on one of the beds, and lowered his voice. "I was Margaret Hayes' personal attorney for 20 years, he began. "I did things I'm not proud of, including destroying your relationship with her son." "Why tell me now?" "Because tomorrow, at that rehearsal dinner, Margaret plans to do it again. She knows you're here. She's known since you crossed the California border." He pulled out a thick envelope. "This is everything. The original papers, the real story. Nathaniel never sent that text. He never signed those documents. He doesn't even know he has a son." The room spun. "That's impossible. The lawyers were mine. The signature was forged. Nathaniel was told you'd terminated the pregnancy and moved back east. By the time he tried to find you, Margaret had covered every track." He stood to leave, then paused. "Tomorrow night, when you walk into that dinner, be prepared. The truth tends to explode messily in the Hayes family." The rehearsal dinner was held at the Vineyard's grand tasting room, all stone walls and soaring windows. Liam wore his only suit, bought hastily that afternoon. He looked so much like his father it made my chest ache. We entered through the main doors, heads turning as we passed. I recognized some faces from old photos, Hayes family members, wine industry elite. Then I saw him. Nathaniel stood near the bar, laughing at something Isabella was saying. 15 years had been kind to him, a few lines around his eyes, gray threading through his dark hair, but still devastatingly handsome. Still the man who'd quoted Neruda to me in a bookstore. He turned, probably sensing the shift in the room's energy. Our eyes met across 20 feet of marble floor. I watched the color drain from his face, saw his champagne glass slip from nerveless fingers. The crystal shattered on the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "Nathaniel?" Isabella touched his arm, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes moved from me to Liam, and I saw the exact moment he understood. His hand went to his chest like he'd been shot. Liam stepped forward, chin raised despite the tremor in his voice. "My name is Liam Carter," he announced to the silent room. "I'm 14 years old, and I just wanted to meet my father before he married someone else." The room erupted. Voices rose, chairs scraped. Someone, probably a Hayes cousin, tried to call security. But Nathaniel held up a hand, his eyes never leaving Liam's face. "Everyone out," he said quietly. When no one moved, his voice turned to steel. "Now!" Margaret Hayes materialized from the crowd, her face a mask of fury barely contained. "Nathaniel, darling, clearly this is some sort of—" "Mother." The word was a warning. "Did you know?" Her hesitation was answer enough. Nathaniel's face transformed, 15 years of carefully controlled emotion breaking free. "You knew I had a son?" Isabella backed away, hand over her mouth. "Nathaniel, what's happening? Margaret told me she'd had an abortion, that she was after money. Get out." He didn't raise his voice, but Isabella fled, wedding dress train dragging behind her. The room emptied until it was just us, Nathaniel, Margaret, Liam, and me, and Ethan Ward stepping from the shadows with a briefcase. "Mr. Hayes," Ethan said formally, "there are some documents you need to see." What followed was the systematic destruction of 15 years of lies. Ethan laid out everything: the forged signatures, the surveillance, the cover-up. With each revelation, Nathaniel's face grew more ashen. Margaret tried to interject, to explain, but her son's raised hand silenced her. "The accident," he said finally, voice rough. "Tell me about the accident." Ethan pulled out a final folder. "Arranged by your brother Lucas. He was concerned about inheritance issues if you had a child outside the family structure. Your mother didn't order it, but she didn't stop it either." I thought Nathaniel might hit something. Instead, he walked to Liam, who'd been silent through the entire exchange. My son, our son, stood his ground as his father approached. "Can I—" Nathaniel's voice broke. "What's your middle name?" "James," Liam answered. "Mom said it was your middle name, too." Nathaniel made a sound like he'd been punched. Then, to my shock, he dropped to his knees in front of our son. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know." "I believe you," Liam said simply. "Mom never said anything bad about you. Just that you made a choice. But I guess you didn't really choose, did you?" Margaret moved toward the door, but Ethan blocked her path. "The police are already outside, Mrs. Hayes. Lucas was arrested an hour ago." She turned to me then, this woman who'd destroyed my life with surgical precision. "You have no idea what you've done," she hissed. "This family, this legacy, your legacy," I said, finding my voice at last, "was built on lies and manipulation. Your son deserved the truth. My son deserved a father." Security arrived then, not for us, but for Margaret. As they led her away, she maintained her regal bearing, but I saw the cracks in her armor. The empire she'd built on control was crumbling. Isabella reappeared in the doorway, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Is it true? All of it?" Nathaniel stood slowly, one hand resting on Liam's shoulder like he was afraid to let go. "Every word." She yanked off her engagement ring, threw it at his feet, and stormed out. I didn't blame her. She'd been as much a victim of Margaret's manipulation as we had. In the aftermath, as police took statements and lawyers appeared from nowhere, Nathaniel never moved from Liam's side. They sat together on a stone bench, talking quietly, 14 years of absence hanging between them like a bridge slowly being built. The wedding, needless to say, didn't happen. The 300 guests who'd traveled to Napa Valley for the social event of the season instead witnessed the complete implosion of the Hayes family dynasty via social media and hastily recorded cell phone videos. I spent the night in the hotel, fielding calls from reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. Liam was with Nathaniel. They'd talked until nearly dawn, sitting in the ruins of what should have been a rehearsal dinner, getting to know each other over cold coffee and broken promises. The next morning, Ethan appeared again, this time with a team of lawyers. "Mrs. Hayes and Lucas will be charged with conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder," he explained. "Nathaniel wants to ensure you're protected during the trial." "I don't want his protection," I said automatically, then caught myself. This wasn't about me anymore. "What does Liam want?" "To know his father," Ethan said simply. "And Nathaniel wants to know his son. The rest is just details." Those details consumed the next 6 months. The trial made national news. "Wine Dynasty matriarch accused of destroying son's family" was a particular favorite headline. Margaret's carefully cultivated image crumbled as witness after witness testified to her manipulations. Lucas, trying to save himself, revealed even more damaging information about financial fraud within the company. Nathaniel moved to Seattle 2 weeks after the wedding. That wasn't. He rented a modest apartment downtown, started attending Liam's soccer games, learned our son's favorite restaurants. He didn't push, didn't assume, he just showed up. "You don't have to do this," I told him one evening, watching him help Liam with algebra homework at our kitchen table. "Yes, I do," he said simply. "I missed 14 years. I'm not missing anymore." Slowly, carefully, we built something new. Not a romance, too much damage lay between us for that, but a friendship, maybe. a partnership in raising the remarkable young man we'd created in those golden months before everything went wrong. Liam thrived with his father in his life. The angry edge that had worried me softened. He still had questions, still had hurt to work through. But he also had answers now. He had a father who'd chosen him the moment he knew he existed. The trial ended with Margaret receiving 5 years for conspiracy and fraud. Lucas got 10 for the attempted murder charge. The Hayes wine empire, freed from their stranglehold, flourished under Nathaniel's leadership. He implemented programs for single parents, created a scholarship fund for nursing students, tried to atone for sins that weren't really his. One evening, 6 months after that disastrous rehearsal dinner, we sat in my small backyard. Liam was at a friend's house, and Nathaniel had brought takeout from the Chinese place he'd remembered I loved. It was almost like before, except for the years etched on our faces and the ghosts sitting between us. "I looked for you," he said suddenly, "after Mother told me you'd ended the pregnancy and left. I hired investigators, but every trail went cold." "She was thorough," I acknowledged. "I should have fought harder, should have known something was wrong when you just vanished." He stared at his hands. I think part of me did know, but it was easier to believe her version, to be angry instead of destroyed. We sat in silence, watching the Seattle sunset paint the sky pink and gold. Finally, I asked the question that had haunted me for 15 years. "What would you have done if you'd known about Liam?" He didn't hesitate. "Chosen you. Both of you. Always. Even against your family?" "Especially against them." He turned to face me fully. "Evelyn, I need you to know I loved you. It wasn't some rich boy's game. You were everything to me." The past tense hung between us like a blade. Were, was, had been. "I know," I said softly, and I did. The boy who'd quoted poetry in bookstores had loved me, truly. But we weren't those people anymore. Ethan joined us for dinner the following week, having become an unexpected part of our strange new family. He'd left law after the trial, started a nonprofit helping families separated by legal manipulation. His guilt over his role in our story drove him to make amends in whatever way he could. "I have something to tell you," he said over dessert, looking unusually nervous. "During the investigation, we discovered something. There's another player we haven't identified. Someone who fed information to Lucas, someone still in the shadows." Nathaniel tensed. "Who?" "We don't know, but they're still out there, still watching." He glanced at me. "I wanted you to be prepared. This might not be over." That night, I dreamed of the accident again, but this time I saw the driver's face in the mirror. It wasn't Lucas or anyone I recognized. It was no one, a hired hand, a tool. The real puppet master remained hidden. I woke to find Liam standing in my doorway. "Bad dream?" "Just memories," I said. "You okay?" He came and sat on the edge of my bed, so mature yet still my little boy. "Dad asked if I wanted to spend the summer in Napa, learn about the business." My chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That I needed to think about it, that I needed to talk to you." He studied my face. "You trust him now, right?" Did I? Trust was such a fragile thing, so easily shattered. But I thought of Nathaniel at every soccer game, every school event, making up for lost time with quiet determination. "I trust that he loves you," I said finally, "and that he'd never willingly let anyone hurt you again." Liam nodded, satisfied. "Then I'll go, but only if you come too." Summer in Napa Valley was golden perfection. Nothing like the gray Seattle drizzle we'd left behind. Nathaniel had insisted we stay in the main house. It's too big for just me anyway. And I'd reluctantly agreed. The estate that had once seemed like enemy territory slowly became something else. Not home, exactly, but a place of healing. Liam threw himself into learning the wine business with enthusiasm that surprised everyone. He had a natural palate, an instinct for the land that made the old vintners nod approvingly. Watching him walk the vineyards with his father, I saw the man he'd become, confident, grounded, kind despite everything he'd endured. "He's remarkable," Nathaniel said one evening. We were sitting on the terrace, watching Liam help with the evening harvest. "You did an incredible job raising him." I had help, I admitted. My mother, friends, a whole village. It wasn't easy, but we managed. Tell me about it, he said. Tell me everything I missed. So I did. I told him about Liam's first words. No, followed quickly by book. About the time he'd broken his arm trying to climb the apple tree in our yard. About science fairs and school plays and the first time he'd asked why he didn't have a father like the other kids. What did you tell him? That his father lived far away and couldn't be with us. That it wasn't anyone's fault. That he was loved completely, even if it was just by me. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. I'm glad you didn't tell him I'd abandoned him, even when you believed I had. I never wanted him to carry that anger, I said. It was mine to bear, not his. Isabella came to the estate near the end of summer. I tensed when I saw her car in the drive, but she wasn't there for Nathaniel. I owe you an apology, she said, finding me in the garden. I knew something was off about Margaret's story. The Evelyn I knew would never have done what she claimed, but I wanted to believe it because I'd been in love with Nathaniel since college. The admission hung between us, old pain given voice. You knew I loved him, I said. It wasn't an accusation, just truth. I knew. And when you disappeared, when Margaret said you'd broken his heart and run off, I saw my chance. She laughed bitterly. Some friend I was, some person. We talked for hours, two women who'd been manipulated by the same master. By the end, we weren't friends. Too much stood between us for that. But we'd found a kind of peace. As summer ended, decisions loomed. Liam would start high school in the fall. Nathaniel had asked us to stay, to make Napa our home. The estate was big enough that we could have separate wings, live as co-parents without the pressure of anything more. What do you want? I asked Liam one night. He thought carefully. Another trait from his father. I want us to be a family. Not like married or whatever. I know too much happened for that. But together, no more split lives. That night, unable to sleep, I walked through the vineyards. The moon was full, casting everything in silver. I found Nathaniel in the old growth section, sitting on the stone wall his grandfather had built. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. Too many thoughts. I sat beside him, careful to leave space between us. Liam wants us to stay. What do you want? I considered the question. What did I want? For 15 years, I'd wanted justice, answers, acknowledgement. I'd gotten all of that. Now what? I want to stop running, I said finally. Stop looking over my shoulder. Stop being afraid. Then stay. Not for me, not even for Liam. Stay for you. A movement in the shadows caught my eye. Someone was in the vineyards, moving between the rows. Nathaniel saw it too, tensing beside me. Security patrol? I whispered. Not at this hour. He pulled out his phone, but before he could call, Ethan emerged from the darkness. We need to talk, he said urgently. All of us, now. I know who the third player is. We gathered in Nathaniel's study, Liam included, despite my protests. He's part of this, Nathaniel said firmly. He deserves to know. Ethan spread documents across the desk, his usual calm shattered. I've been tracking financial records, looking for patterns. Someone's been shorting Hayes Vineyard stock for years, making millions every time a family scandal hit. They've been profiting off your pain. Who? Nathaniel's voice was dangerous. Robert Hayes. Your father. The silence was deafening. Robert Hayes had been absent from the family business for years, content to live off his dividends while Margaret ran the empire. Quiet, unremarkable Robert. That's impossible, Nathaniel said. My father barely knows how to check email. A carefully cultivated image, Ethan said. He's been playing a long game. Every crisis, every scandal, he's been behind it, feeding information to Lucas, manipulating Margaret. He wanted the company to fail so he could buy it back for pennies and cut his children out entirely. But why involve us? I asked. Why destroy Nathaniel's relationship with me? Ethan pulled out a final document. Because Nathaniel had already updated his will. If anything happened to him, his shares would go to any children he had. When you got pregnant, Robert saw a threat to his plan, so he helped Margaret eliminate you, then used that secret to control her for years. Liam spoke for the first time. So my grandfather tried to have my mom killed to protect money? I'm afraid so, Ethan said gently. Nathaniel stood abruptly, rage radiating from every line of his body. Where is he? Switzerland. He's been there for the past week, probably planning his next move. Ethan hesitated. There's more. He's been in contact with someone in Seattle, someone who's been watching Evelyn and Liam for years, reporting back. My blood ran cold. All those times I'd felt eyes on me, dismissed it as paranoia. Who? I managed. We're still working on that, but Nathaniel, you need to secure the company now. Call an emergency board meeting, expose everything before he can make his next move. What followed was a whirlwind of lawyers, board meetings, and press conferences. Nathaniel took control with a ruthlessness I'd never seen before, protecting not just his company but his family, our family. Robert Hayes was arrested trying to re-enter the country. The trial revealed decades of manipulation, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Margaret, watching from her prison cell, must have felt a bitter satisfaction seeing her husband face the same fate she'd orchestrated for others. The watcher in Seattle turned out to be a private investigator, hired to ensure I never returned to California. He'd been paid for 14 years of reports on our daily lives. The violation of it, the stolen privacy, made me sick, but we survived it, together. The morning sun painted the vineyards gold as I stood on the terrace, coffee in hand. It had become my favorite ritual, watching the estate wake up. Liam jogged past with his training group. He'd joined the cross-country team at his new school, making friends who didn't care about his complicated family history. Nathaniel emerged from the house, hair still wet from his shower. Board meeting at 9, he said, kissing my forehead absently. It was new, this casual affection. Not romantic, exactly, but something. Partnership, trust. The possibility of more someday when the wounds had healed a little more. Dinner at 6? I asked. Ethan's bringing his new girlfriend. Wouldn't miss it. We'd become an odd little family. The son of privilege who'd lost everything and found it again. The single mother who'd survived abandonment and assassination attempts. The teenager who'd brought us all together, and the lawyer seeking redemption. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Liam appeared on the terrace, stealing my coffee with a grin. Dad's teaching me to drive the vineyard truck today. God help us all, I muttered, but I was smiling. As they headed off together, arguing good-naturedly about manual transmissions, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a moment, the old fear surfaced. Then I remembered. We'd won. The shadows had been dragged into the light. I declined the call without answering. You coming? Liam called from the truck. I looked at my son. Our son. Safe and happy and whole despite everything. At Nathaniel, who'd chosen us the moment he'd known the truth. At the life we'd built from lies and ashes and 15 years of stolen time. Yeah, I called back, setting down my coffee. I'm coming. The future stretched before us, uncertain but no longer frightening. We'd survived the worst. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.